I think, ladies and gentlemen, it's really a pleasure to be here. And it's really an important conference, and I feel privileged to be a speaker at this conference and to convey to you some of the ideas and concepts of the European Institute of Innovation and Technology. The gentleman you're seeing leaning on a huge bridge, which is the Golden Gate Bridge, is Joseph Strauss. He was an engineering student of Berkeley, and interesting enough, he did not even conclude his PhD thesis, and he was convinced, addicted to build this bridge, understanding from his engineering and physics studies that a bridge with only two pylons in suspending the Golden Gate would work, and the materials of the time could do it. But he had to set up 3 companies, and finally he got a consortium together after 3 bankruptcies in really spanning the bridge, which last year was celebrating its 75th years of anniversary of inauguration. The interesting thing is, if you believe in this model of building a bridge and spanning the Golden Gate, is it was so visionary in having 8 tracks, 4 going in and out to San Francisco. You could not really believe that without this bridge, Silicon Valley would have come, biotech would have come, because at that time it was interconnecting people. So there is a mess out there when we talk about innovation. I think people often mix up discovery, invention, and translation. And unfortunately, many politicians even have not clear in mind that translating something really into have impact on people, I think this is the, so to say, definition of Schumpeter, really brings back to the society inventions, translations, or discoveries. And the important thing is that we have all these ingredients in Europe, in Wales, and at many places. I think Europe has powerhouses of first-class research institutes. It has wonderful universities. It has fantastic companies and big corporations. It has small and medium-sized companies. It has even now cross-border collaboration. And it's fantastic that we all can show this. And still, as we know, we are limping behind and we are not getting this level of innovation we would like to have at the old continent. And the interesting point, if to look and try to find a reason for this, just go with me and have a look at biotech industry. The 2 key discoveries or inventions which were driving as full the biotech industry was a discovery in Cambridge of the monoclonal antibody, and it's the Bay Area of San Francisco, the recombinant DNA technology invented by Herb Boyer and Stan Cohen. The Cambridge guys were Cesar Milstein and George Köhler. Cesar Milstein and George Köhler went at that time, it was 75 in the last century, to the rector of the Cambridge University. They would like to file a patent, and he discouraged them. Herb Boyer and Stan Cohen, they went to their 2 university rectors, one being at the University of UCSF San Francisco, the other one's at Stanford University, and they filed this famous recombinant DNA patent. And I think the result you see here, the biotech industry, so also nicely growing in Europe, is only the 3rd in number of people employing. The anniversary investment into biotech innovation is 3 times higher. I think more than 30% of the biotech companies in the United States are listed in public and they can fetch fresh money, while less than 10% of the European biotech companies are listed on stock markets. And I don't like to go to this. The accrued value of the European biotech industry is not even a 1/3 of the one of the United States. Behind this are numbers. In reality, this means new treatments against cancer, infectious diseases, not coming out of Europe, although it has a potential. Where is the smoking gun? The smoking gun is basically, if you look into how agile are our European next generation people in setting up companies. And this is really where it shows where we have a lack. If you take how many innovative companies, from the biggest, let's say, like Siemens, to the smallest biotech companies, let's say Intercell, only about 2% of those companies have been set up since the year 1975, while in the United States, in the same time period, about more than 20% of the companies have been, so to say, put into place. So what we need is this portrait of a young Bill Gates when he was still in the garage of his parents. We have to encourage the people, not only at universities, to take fresh ideas and to carry them forward and to become entrepreneurial. So this is exactly what is the proposition of the European Institute of Innovation and Technology. We like to drive open innovation by really interconnecting the key players of innovation in the knowledge triangle, which is research, which is education, and which is business, and business always goes together with a customer, or if you are in the treatment of patients, this could be patients. And in the center of this knowledge triangle, you have to place the entrepreneur. While this is a long-term knowledge, and I think it's preached by many people here in the audience to their local politicians, it hasn't yet understood that only if you have initiative takers who really take all these ingredients and form them together, you get really innovation. So the Institute basically is not what you would believe another provider of research money. We rather like to place our money, I think, to get really ownership and accountability. Also, we like to get really the silo mentality of Europe. I mean, often even within single European member states, you have also players. You have people who are venture capitalists, you have people who are outstanding researchers, and you have people who have the ingredient of knowing how to go to the customer. But they are not really talking together. Like we have those hubs in the United States, like the Boston Arena or the San Francisco Arena, where, to take the English word, it comes naturally because all the players are close together. So we have to overcome the silo mentality, and we have really to create, mentioned this morning in the initial session, ecosystems, and I guess sometimes it really needs only seed to kick this off, and that's all what the EIT is about. So seed money is for always the best way of placing money, I think, in this early stage of something new coming, if you have the guts, and this is why we are taking the taxpayers' money and saying, to create such ecosystems, we have to invest in, I think, building up, so to say, the EIT with this initial money. So the EIT is a different approach than classical research support. It's from the idea to the product, it is from the lab to the market, it is from the student to the entrepreneur. So your question may now come, how do we achieve this? It's a relatively simple concept. We are saying we are bringing the player together in so-called KICs. It's an awful Brussels acronym. I prefer to use the word innovation factory. So this is a group of people run by a CEO following a business plan in which we put our seed money in. And they are, so to say, devoted to drive open innovation around one single topic, let's say renewable energy. And I think they are output focused. They launch entrepreneurs. I think certainly we like to have excellent players from all the partnerships, but we also like to include low-key players because sometimes it is a research nurse which makes the important observation during a clinical trial. And they should come long-term, autonomous, and sustainable. So they are not always depending on more tax money. We are only seeding them to come into place. And they are out for integration exchange. They bridge people together, co-locations. I will come to this. And they have a clear governance structure, and we are only seeding them. So how does it work in practice? Well, if you look at the European landscape, you can see many of the single ingredients you need for innovation. You have universities, educational institutes, business schools, venture capital, and I think they are distributed. And in some instances even, I should say, governments in the whole European community were smart enough sometimes even to foster that they're coming together. But rarely you put really the, so to say, the triangle coming together and placing the entrepreneur in the center. And the other important thing is they have to be placed into co-location centers because while scientists can easily talk to scientists, engineers and translators easily talk to translators, but you have in an endeavor where you do something new in innovation to explain the scientist why do you need a chief financial officer? And you have to explain a chief financial officer that sometimes scientists come 9 o'clock in the evening and work through the night and leave in the morning. So in order to get these people understanding their different backgrounds and camps, you need to place them into co-location center. And then to one topic, you're interconnecting them. And this is a KIC, this is a knowledge and innovation community. At this stage, we have been able in only 4 years, and we have been meeting for the first time the governing board of the EIT on September 15th. You remember what happened on September 15th, 2008? It was a day when Lehman Brothers went bankrupt. So we met on this remarkable day and said, let's really do it and let's really move forward and make quickly the first calls for the first 3 kicks to the topics of climate mitigation, of ICT, and renewable energy. And I think, as you can see, each of these 3 kicks have been formed, these 6, 7 hubs, which they are interconnected by, forming together 70 knots in Europe. And I think if we get further kicks, as Madame Vassiliou has been stating before, I think we get a denser map of these innovation factories. Just to show you one example of a kick, this is a climate kick for climate mitigation. You have really impressive large corporations, but you have also many small corporations, but you have also the creme de la creme of climate research, like, for example, the Potsdam Institute of Climate Research nearby Berlin. So what have we achieved in having the kicks running for 2.5 years? We have together more than 300 partners. We have invested, not even at this stage, 300 million euros, and we have a true counter-financing of about 1.1 billion euros from the partners coming in, investors coming in. And we have really give the students the opportunities not only to be formed by professors, but also by people out the industry to tell them you can do something else in your life and not becoming again a professor. And if you visit our co-location center, you see you have not people in our life stage, you have young people who are not dressed with a tie and they are not shy to go, let's say, to the business developer of Bayer and asking him, how do I write a business plan? I don't like to go in all to this in details, it's a public domain. Important is, in only this short time, we have now more than 108 startup companies growing out of the kicks. So what is the future of the EIT? Well, the EIT, I would say, in being self-critical, we have been, so to say, proven our existence. We were able to build them up, they're functioning, and they're showing some first tangible results. That does not yet mean they have done a change to Europe. We have really to see that we foster new waves of companies, ideas, and innovation coming back to people. But it looks like that the European community has begun to trust us, so we are looking forward, we get more money to foster the build-up of another 6 kicks during the next 6 years within the frame Horizon 2020 up to the year 2020. And we are clearly focused on societal changes. It is clear, since we take the taxpayers' money, that the kicks we implement are in line with some of the challenges we do have in Europe. And being a grandfather of 3 grandchildren, I have to say it's relevant for me, healthy life and healthy aging, okay? Or food for people. I think how can we get the food industry also in developing products to the customers, which takes a recent knowledge we have, for example, on our internal system of having 1 kilogram of bacteria in our intestinal part. I always talk about the 3 times 1 kilogram. 1 kilogram brain, 1 kilogram immune system, 1 kilogram bacteria. And all these 3 universes, they do interact with each other. So what we will like to show to you in the next years that they really attract private investors, and we have first touched base with venture capital. They really like the ecosystems because they feel for the first time people know what they're talking about. We like really also to become these kicks interconnected globally, because let's not be too Eurocentric. I think innovation is global, and I don't think a kick all along can function if they have not contacts with their counterparts in the United States or in China or some of these emerging economies. The EIT itself should really become also a collector of this information, giving it back, for example, Martin, to the people here meeting in this room. And I hope that we are together with you making a learning curve on those kicks. And last but not least, I think they should come sustainable. In my last slide, I a little bit summarize what the kicks which we are implementing from the EIT side is all about. Partners, talents, networks, education, mindset change, novel concepts and platforms. They are moving up into entre, but also entrepreneurs. I think let's not be arrogant. Not every good idea is moved forward by new startup companies, often also picked up within companies. For example, the vaccine business of GSK has been basically moved forward by a very entrepreneurial group in Belgium. And this leads, hopefully, to products and services and also to financial sustainability. On the other hand, we learned this morning we only have one blue planet to live on. So we need also to see that the kicks are unlocking potentials, facilitating competitiveness, high-quality jobs, solution to challenges, sustainability, and societal impact. So, in essence, I do feel this is an interesting experiment, and I'm grateful that the Commission is giving us the money to do this experiment, and I hope we will succeed, at least in part, in giving something back to you. Before I conclude, and I don't want to be the person who's kind of changing the theme, I'm belonging to the first generation of molecular biologists, which is my original training. And so I really have been growing up with a double helix. And I think one of the old experiments we used to do in the late 60s and the early 70s was called hybridization. You separate the two strands of the Watson-Crick helix, and then at about 60 centigrades in liquid solution, the strands are finding again each other together. And the longer the genome is, the more complex the genome is, the longer it takes that the right base pairs are reforming the double helix. So it's a very slow process, and the complexer it is, this hybridization, the slower it works. It can take even days. If you now like to talk about triple, quadruple, and pentable helixes, I just like you to think this may be a very slow process. So I think maybe the inventor of this term wasn't a molecular biologist. It sounds good, but from the experience I have, it could be a very lengthy experiment. Let's find ways to catalyze this hybridization of the 5 strands. Thank you so much.